Alright, hello there and welcome to another After Effects tutorial, and in this one we're going to be looking at how to work with green screens. So as you can see here, I have a clip of my drone, and if I play it back we have something like this. But how do we actually remove this background so that we can add our own background? Well, if you go over to your effects and you type in key, you will see that a few options appear. And we have one called the key light plus key cleaner plus advanced spill suppressor. And I'm going to select this one right here and drag it onto my clip. Notice that it appears over here. Now, what's very interesting about this effect is that it is actually a combination of different effects. You have the key light 1.2, which is right here, which is used for green screens that are really easy. For this video, you could probably get away with just using this effect. But we also have the key cleaner, which is right here. And then we have the advanced spill suppressor. And if I type this in, you will see it. Advanced spill suppressor. So it's a combination of all three of these effects. Okay, so now we're going to look at how to actually select our subject. So notice that if I bring my cursor up here, in my info bar, over in the corner, right here, notice that the values are changing. This is telling me the color values of what my mouse is hovering over. So I see very clearly that in my green, there are different values. Now, when we actually do the keying, how do we know which color to select? Well, if we go over here and select our eyedropper, the simple principle is that you want to try to get as close to your subject as possible. So I'm going to go over here close to my drone, and I'm going to get on the green and select it right about here. And notice that it did a pretty decent job, okay? And if you didn't like this, you could just press Ctrl Z, and then you would have to go back over here again and select again another spot. Now sometimes this can get a little repetitive, so there's a little trick that you can do. You can open up your layer right here by double clicking on it, and this brings up your layer panel like this. And I'm going to press Ctrl Z so that my background appears again. Now on the view, we need to set this to none, like this, so that we don't have any effect on this. And then we're going to go and select our picker. And then if we just hover over to where we want it to be selected, and we just press Alt, you don't click, you just press Alt, notice that the color is actually removed. And you can do this as many times as you want just by pressing Alt, and it will make your selection. And you don't have to keep going over here again and again. So I'll set it to right here. And then when you find a spot that is good, you just left click and you have your selection. Now let us go ahead and let us look at some of the views up here. We have things like intermediate result. We have things like status, which gives us this. We have screen mat like this, and source. And the views are just different ways of us seeing our keying. Now I'm going to select the status view here. Notice that we have three different colors. We have black, gray, and white. The black shows us what was completely taken out, or what is 100% transparent. The gray here shows us what is semi-transparent, and then the white here shows us what is completely not transparent or completely visible. Now the ultimate goal is to get your subject to be completely white with no gray, and then your background to be completely black. Now if we wanted to make another selection just to do better, we could do that. So select this, press Alt, see what you get. So it's getting closer, but it's not perfect yet. Next, we're going to look at how we can better clean this up. All right, so now we want to really clean this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my intermediate result, and I'm going to be jumping in between my intermediate result and my screen mat. So going back over here, I'm going to first adjust the screen gain. Now, while I was doing this video, I didn't mention it, but it's been recommended that you should try to keep the screen color and the screen gain not too far apart. I know in this example I didn't do that, but I still got a good result. But you may want to keep that in mind for when you do your green screen. So now I'm going to open up the screen mat and start messing with some of these settings, like the clip blacks and the clip whites. I'm just going to play around with these things till I get what I like. Now pay attention right here. Now notice here that we have the screen shrink or grow, which allows you to mess with the outer edge. And we also have the screen softness, which is like how soft the edge is going to be. Okay, so now what we are going to do is look at the key cleaner to try to clean this up a little bit more if we can. So we have the additional edge radius, and you usually want to drop this down. So I'll make this 6 right here. And this just affects the radius of our edge with the green. Notice if I bump it up, it makes a slight difference like that. But I'm going to put it at 6. And then I'm going to turn on this reduce chatter, which helps to remove the noise around the edges, especially in the darks. And you can adjust things like the alpha contrast and the strength as well if you want. And if we look at this in our final view, now we will see that it's taken a lot of the green out, so that's good. I'll put this back to my intermediate result. Now notice that we have the advanced spill suppressor as well, and you're going to turn that on. This removes any of the green spill that is still on your subject. But it can also change your color as well. So if I was to turn this off, notice that the color is changing a little bit. So to fix this, you go over here to standard, click on it, and then select ultra. And then your colors are back. And this is because of the key color that the ultra has now applied. And this is the intermediate result. It looks pretty good. If I turn it to my final result, I have this. So I'm happy with that. And if we were to put like a background on this, so I'll go over here to project, and then we can select this field right here, click on it, and we'll make our drone a little bit smaller like this. Zoom out. We have something like this. Notice how there's this little edge on it, so I'm gonna have to go back into my effects and clean this up a little bit more. Maybe say bump this down to 3 or 2.9. That looks a lot better already. So it was the additional edge radius that fixed it. All right, so now we're going to look a little bit more at how we can blend this into a background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this mountains picture right here and drag it underneath. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to pre-comp this drone clip right here so that all of my effects over here are in this pre-comp. So I'm going to right click, pre-compose, move all attributes into new composition, and then press OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my effects, and I'm going to look for Lumetri color. Drag this on to my layer right there. And then notice that if we opened up our basic corrections, we could mess with the temperature, make it a little cooler to kind of match with the bluish mountains in the background like that if you wanted to. Just a little bit like that. You could also play with the saturation, so you could bump this up. And here I'm just going to bump up my blue curve real fast. So there it is. So that's just a simple way that you can actually blend in your subject to the background. Now we can also add a shadow to this. So we could say, go over here and type in shadow. And we have things like the drop shadow or the radial shadow. We could select the radial shadow and just drag this on like this. Notice that a shadow appears. It's a pretty heavy shadow, but that's all right. Lower the opacity, something like that. And then the source is right here. So you're going to click on this, and then you can move the shadow to where you want it to be. So I'll move it to right here because I feel like the light is coming from this direction, shining down. And I'll move the source a little bit over like that, a little bit higher. And then you can mess with the softness as well, so how heavy you want the shadow to be. Let's bump up the opacity again a little bit. Okay. And if you want to change the size of this, a quick trick that you can do is you can simply turn this guy off, and then you're going to duplicate this layer. So press Ctrl D, it duplicates it. Go down here, and then we're going to turn this guy back on, but we're going to select shadow only so that it only gives us our shadow. And then all you have to do now is you just press S, and then you can shrink it down, and you can say grab this layer and just move it to where you want it to be. So that's one way to add a shadow. You could also just use the drop shadow right here. I find it a little bit easier. So I'll delete this guy, and I'll delete the effect that we added as well. And I will add this drop shadow on top. And you can just make your changes right here. So the opacity you can adjust, and the distance like that, direction, softness. And once again, if you wanted to change the size, you could just use the shadow only technique that I just showed you, and you would be able to do that. So that's a little bit about how to work with Greenscreen. I hope that you will give it a try, and we will see you in the next tutorial. Until next time.